From the studios of Foxboro Cable Access, located in the center of Foxboro, Massachusetts, you are watching Around Foxboro.
Hello and welcome to Around Foxboro, the show that we learn about the people, places, and things that make Foxboro the gem of Norfolk County. My name is Mark Rivard, and I'm pleased to have as my guest today, Nancy Saffron.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you for being here. So we're going to talk a little bit about home staging today.
Yep.
All right, because a lot of people are trying to sell their houses, so it's a very important thing to have it staged properly. But can you tell me a little bit about how you got into that? There must have been a road that you took to get to that point, or?
It's really interesting to me how things kind of work out sometimes. I had several different jobs. One was as a licensor for the state, so I learned to look at spaces in a very specific way. I used to work for the town of Brookline. And I was also an early childhood specialist. And I also worked with my mom, who's a traditional interior designer since 2008.
Oh, wow.
We had a business, Simply Beautiful. And we found that a lot of homes that were prepared in a very traditional manner, from a traditional interior design perspective, had rooms that people weren't using. They were very formal. They would tell us that was the company room, and they just didn't actually use all the space in their home. So we did interior redesign before it was kind of trendy. And then when my mom retired, I took over and I rebranded and went back to school and learned about home staging. And it just made so much sense to me. I fell in love with it and opened my business.
Nice. I could probably use your help in my house because my rooms are cluttered. But I use all the space in my house, just so you know. I use it all badly.
That's homeowners, that's living in your house, which is totally cool, and that's a whole different kind of design. And then there's selling your house, which is really marketing.
Yeah. So has it been really busy lately? Because I know the market's been going up and down as far as the housing market.
In some ways, that definitely affects home staging, but home staging is a marketing technique. It's visual marketing. It's sort of the flip side of interior design is the way I describe it to people. So interior design is all about the current homeowner and their taste level and what they're interested in. And home staging is about marketing to future owners. And that's a service that actually helps homes sell faster, and that's something sellers want in every market, and they sell at a higher price point. So there's always opportunities to stage a home.
Now, do you get referrals? Like, for example, let's say there's a vacant house that somebody flips, and they want to sell it. Have you ever had to work with one of those houses, as opposed to a house that's been lived in and people are still living there, to go into a house that's totally vacant and say, okay, we want to make this look nice. We just redesigned it, did all the electric work and everything. Have you ever been in that situation?
I have, and that's a really good question because there really are specific types of home staging. There's owner-occupied, which the owner lives in the home, and that's a very different type of marketing than vacant homes. And so vacant homes, I have done many of them, and what we're trying to achieve there is show people how a room functions. It's really hard to figure out when you're walking into a vacant home how large the dining room is, how you could fit people into the family room, what the kitchen could look like. Even with beautiful finishes, it can be very cold, overwhelming, and people don't really understand how well they can live there. So I've done quite a few of those for investors, or for sometimes people who've already moved out of the home. They might have moved to another state already and they leave the home empty. So we bring in furniture, artwork, accessories, lighting, whatever it takes.
So even like those model condos, things like that?
I've done that for some assisted living, actually,
Really?
local, some packages, and what is really important there is really the size, because they can be quite small and modest, and it's hard for people to figure out, how would I ever be able to live in this room? So, that's something I really enjoy doing. But I would say my sweet spot is working with owners who are living in the home. It's probably part of why I love what I do, because I enjoy working with people, and it feeds into my background in early childhood and my background in working with families. So I really know how to help people live through the process of selling their homes, because it's complicated and it can be challenging.
Yeah. Another thing too is when you get people, you must have run into this where people decide, well, I don't want to take that off the wall. I don't want to move this picture. That's my grandparents. And you're like, well, I need the spacing. People want to, because from what I understand, people want to see what their house could look like. When they walk into a house, they want to see okay, this is what my house could look like. But if there's so much stuff all over the place, they can't make that picture. Is that true?
That's such a great question. Yes, that's exactly what we talk about a lot. But what I explain to people is I'm there to market their home. It has nothing to do with their taste. And I make very clear to people at the onset, I'm part of the team. I'm here to help you. And in the end, people get to choose if they really are attached to something and they just can't let go of it. We'll work around that. But what I remind them is they're going to have to take those things down anyway when they move, so they can do it now and make money in doing it, or they can do it later. But it is hard for people. They've put money and emotions into their home. They've spent a lot of time thinking about those expensive draperies or window treatments, and here I am coming in and saying, we're selling the home, not what's in it, is what I remind people.
Right, and it's going to be more basic as opposed to if it's too much personal.
Right.
People may not go for it.
Yeah, it's hard for them to envision living there, and that's really why a lot of home stagers will tell you take down personal pictures. I mean, I don't have any blanket rules. I never say to people take every picture down. I'll say let's select those that you're really attached to and let's put them in the more private spaces. But we don't want buyers to walk in and get distracted. Sometimes they're beautiful, pictures of families and children and weddings and whatnot, and they can get really enmeshed in that experience, and then they sort of lose themselves and they can't picture themselves living there.
Yeah, and I guess a lot of people also have a lot of empty space.
It depends how long people have lived there. I usually don't run up into too much empty space. There's usually a lot of stuff.
Like I said, not in my house, but...
Yeah, well, but for most people that's true. I mean, they say, I work with a lot of professional organizers, and I've been told it takes I think 8 hours for every year that you've lived in a home just to declutter. And that's a lot of time for people who've lived in their home for 20 years. That's a lot of time. So usually I'm talking to people about editing. Start with easy things that you'd have to do anyway. Pack up your closets 50%, so they look a little more empty and people can see the floor and see how big that closet is, make money on it. That's the goal.
Yeah. Excuse me. I also, a friend of mine was actually selling her condo, and her real estate agent actually said, leave your boxes on the floor. It makes more of a sense of urgency. Wouldn't that do just the opposite? People would say, oh, they're ready to sell. Well, we can get it at a lower price. I mean, would you even...
I've never heard that advice. I think that wouldn't be something I would advise people to do. I really wouldn't want them to get even, as you said, get any messages. I mean, that's the other reason why it's a good idea to edit out personal items is you have a lot of people coming into your home. You don't necessarily need them to know, the names of your children, where they go to school, who your family members are. And sometimes, the photos that go up have a lot of personal information. And I really, you don't know who's looking at anything. So it's always a good idea to be more anonymous.
Right. So I guess you also brought some videos to show?
I did,
You did? So what's the first one?
So the first one is a before and after, and I think it just really explains, it's a vacant property that we were talking about, that first one, where it was an empty home and it wasn't selling, and so the realtor contacted me for her seller and said, let's show people how well they can live there. So that's what we did.
All right, well, let's take a look at it. Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing what you can do to
It makes a big difference. It really does.
Yeah.
It helps people see the lifestyle they can have there.
That's excellent. That's excellent. Yeah, you do good work.
Thank you.
So you also have another video to show?
This video someone was living in, and just like any homeowner, they were using spaces for storage, they were using spaces that, just the way that they would. And you'll see in this video that we took, for example, a storage room and we made it into a playroom study. So it became valuable space to a buyer, where it was really just part of the laundry storage room. And then later on, it shows you the living room before and after. They like to watch TV in a certain way, so there was a big cozy couch, but it really didn't highlight all the architectural interest in the home. So,
All right, let's take a look. Wow, it's amazing.
thank you.
How you can transform it like that. People don't realize what their house could look like. They only see it for what it is. They can't see it for what it could be. And that's where you step in.
I think that's really important, is that it is really hard for people to understand how a space can function if you just tell them, picture this with a smaller couch and a different color on the wall and these updates. It doesn't speak to them. It's an emotional decision, buying a home. It's really a big financial, it's probably the biggest financial decision most of us will make, but when it comes down to it, it's really an emotional decision. And one of the ways that I do research is I go to open houses and I listen to buyers, and I always hear them using emotional language. So they'll say things, I love the house, I can picture us living here. Or conversely, if it's not staged and it's maybe got too much clutter or dated furnishings, they say, look, we're going to have to fix this, and this is going to cost money, and oh, look at those cabinets look a little chipped. And these are all things that are really easy to tackle prior to selling the house and putting it on the market.
Sometimes it just takes a little polish, take the cabinets down, refinish them, things like that. Maybe if there's wallpaper, get rid of it, paint it, something like that. Just make a change, make it more modern.
Absolutely, make it more updated, make people feel like they can walk right in and live there. They may or may not like everything you've done, but there's nothing there that they're going to have a big objection to and say, look at this project. Because most people buying a home overestimate the cost of making improvements. And so if we take that away, when they're making an offer, they're going to make that adjustment in their offer if they think they have to do a lot of improvements. So it's always better to do them ahead of time.
Oh yeah, I remember when I was looking for my house 10 years ago.
Yep,
I had to make some improvements. I didn't really have it done beforehand, but I had to do it. So it's much better if you do it in advance. You get a better price for your house.
you do. You absolutely do. And it sells faster. And that also translates into a better price because you're not paying for the monthly fees that are associated with owning a home. So, and I think a lot of realtors will tell you that the first offers are usually the best. So you've got to make a really good first impression.
Now, do you do some of the work yourself, or do you just give them the visuals and say, this is what you need to do?
I actually do both. One of the most common services people hire me for is a consultation. And sometimes I come in as part of the realtors team, and they will offer me as part of their listing package, which is great because it really shows how much they care about those pictures being perfect. That's really where people make their first impression, and they decide whether or not they're even going to come to an open house or they want to see the property. They're going to look at those photos. So that's a very common thing where homeowners will hire me or realtors to say, just give me all that information. I spend a couple of hours with them. We do as much work as we can, and then I give them a written report. And I also come back and do the whole thing. It's really very much whatever they need, whatever their budget allows, and whatever investments they can make. I will give them all the recommendations for paint colors and light fixtures and new knobs for the cabinets. Or I can bring in rental items, rental furniture for them if that really will help promote the property.
Yeah, because these days it's not like it used to be where, oh, I'm going to go check out this house. All you see is a picture of the outside. Now you go online, there's pictures of every room, every angle. the first thing you do is when you get online, you start looking at these pictures. Ooh, I can see this, I can see this, I can see this. So
Yeah.
they got to get it done right away to make sure those pictures are, really good and enticing for people to come and buy their home.
And the longer it sits there, the more people, are sort of thinking that it's going to be a better price. So it's really great to come out as a dynamic product, as something different that sets them apart. And there's a lot of industry statistics that tell you that they do sell much faster at a better price point when a home is staged, because it sets it apart. People say that, oh, I've got to see that house. That looks so pretty. I can see myself living there. So.
All right, now we have to get to the real important stuff. You got to tell us all about your business, where they can reach you, your website, your phone number. Go.
Oh, okay.
Promotion time.
Thank you. Well, it's Show House Home Staging. And when you go on Show House Home Staging, we have an easy way to access. The website is www.showhousehomestaging.com, and I'm Nancy at showhousehomestaging.com. Sorry, that URL is really long, but that was one that was there for me.
We'll put it up on the screen for everybody.
Yeah, and I would love to talk with anybody about questions they have about design, redesign, home staging. I really like to be a resource for people.
Excellent. Well, make sure you go and see Nancy if you have to have your home staged, if you're thinking of selling your home. Well, thank you, Nancy. Thank you for coming in today.
Oh, thanks very much for having me. It was great.
Thank you. And that's another edition of Around Foxboro. I'm Mark Rivard. Have yourself a great day.